So there's kind of, when we think about something like sustainability, we often think about economic sustainability, social and environmental. Those things are all interconnected.
They're all interconnected. If you can bring, I always think about it from a very individual perspective. So if you can bring one person into a job, into a better job, into a better paid job, you are affecting an entire household of people. You're giving them more disposable income, and with more disposable income, with greater opportunities, you know all the research that's out there suggests that their educational choices and educational attainment of their children is improved. Their health and well-being is improved because with more disposable income, they can make better choices in terms of what they eat, how they spend their leisure time, what they do as a family unit. They can maybe afford to buy a new house that increases their well-being and their mental well-being. They can go on, there's just so much. If you can just lift one person into a slightly better financial situation, because you've upskilled them, because you've given them tools to apply to a different job, or that you've brought a new employer in who's looking for hundreds of staff and you can get people into it, then that's, for me, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. It's not necessarily about the big picture, broad strategic stuff, which we do every day as well. But for me, it's back down to the reality of the one person that you've managed to help improve their life. Yeah. And that is economics. And economics then impinges on all of those other areas so clearly, for me anyway, that it makes perfect sense. Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
Economics is everywhere.
It's everywhere and it's everything. And I love it.
John McMullen, who used to head up Bryson Group, he said something very similar to what you just said, and he summed it up like this. He said, when someone has a job, they have resources, which gives them choices.
That's much more poetic than I articulated.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same. It's the same meaning behind it, and the same just calling out something which is really great for our society. So you talk a bit there about some of the challenges in your work in terms of helping people who are maybe economically inactive with disability, long-term sickness, or maybe just are choosing not to work because the economic conditions for them. So like how do we lever? How do we lever some of that? How does that change, Stephen?
Well, we've been trying for 25 years to change the dial on that particular measure. Economic activity in Northern Ireland has not budged in all the time that I've nearly been alive. Yeah. It's sat comfortably at about 25% of our working age population. And when you compare that to the rest of GB or down to the Republic of Ireland, where it sits at about 12, 11, you can see the challenge, the scale of the challenge we have here. And there have been multiple interventions, multiple new programs, and spearheaded at very senior level across executive as well as at local government level that have tried to tackle this issue. It comes down probably to intergenerational cycles, and it's trying to break that. And that is the crux of it. Mm-hmm. We can give all the training, we can go into every community, we offer all the training that we want, but if the financials for those people do not stack up, then it becomes unviable. And that is probably one of the greatest challenges our society faces today. And you hear the drama in Westminster at the minute because they're talking about welfare reform, and whatever side of that debate you're on, the welfare system across the UK and in Northern Ireland does need to be looked at, because there is, well, not only because the spending on it has spiraled out of control to the point where it's unaffordable. So from a very supply demand for money, going back to my economics point of view, we cannot afford for the system to continue to grow in the scale that it's growing. But in Northern Ireland in particular, we have lots of historical issues that affect our population still to this day that mean that our dependence upon welfare is higher than in every other region of the United Kingdom, and if you look again down to the other comparator in the Republic of Ireland. So for us, it's probably getting to a point where it is better financially for people to work. And that seems like a really simplistic thing to say. It seems like probably a very sensible, straightforward, logical thing to say, but at the minute that doesn't work. There's too many people who are scared for their own financial well-being, because if they take on X number of hours of work for X number of pounds, they'll be worse off because they'll have to give up X number of pounds of their welfare. And that's, until we fix that big challenge, all of our interventions will not get the momentum that they need to make an actual dial shift change on it. And it's challenging. It's challenging politically, of course it is. It's challenging for those individuals as well. You're trying to encourage people to fundamentally change how they finance their lives, and and it's often seen as a punishment if you start talking about taking a benefit away or reducing it or tapering it off over a period of time or whatever the mechanism will be. It's politically unpopular, of course it is, because they're votes at the end of the day as well for different political parties, but also it's seen as punishment. It's seen as punishment, and you can't have a blanket policy either. So there will be people who genuinely can't work, and there'll be people who genuinely have reasons why they can't work. So it's not a straightforward area. We are dipping our toe into the surface of it, really, in terms of what we want to do at a local level. We are trying to do it from a purely employer-driven perspective, in that we need to try and find people. So even if I can find a cohort of 25 people and train them, that's better than having nobody trained and get them into work. So we're not doing massive numbers and the numbers we need back to our 12, 15,000 vacancies. We're not going to solve that problem, but we will try everything that we can to try and shift the dial in our local area around that. But the broader challenges still exist.
If I think of the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach, so top-down, as you've mentioned, we've been trying this for a long time, policies, strategies, funding, and then you have at a community level, someone on the street in Mossley or Antrim getting a job and talking to their neighbour about how much they love their new job, and that neighbour is then thinks about it and is a bit inspired and all of that. Like, what's going to have the biggest impact? Is it going to be that continue to try and put a top down, or is it at that community base?
There's definitely a community element to it. There's no doubt. As I said earlier, I think it's intergenerational, yes. So it's within households, it's intergenerational, but it's also within communities. And there are communities, and they're well documented. There's been plenty of research done to identify them that have particular challenges around economic inactivity. And we work very, very closely, both at a political level with our elected members, but also as a team, to go into those areas. And it is challenging to go into those areas and try and offer these people an alternative to what they know, and to try and encourage them to undertake training and skills, and almost with no guarantee of what will come out of it, and we can't offer any guarantee around the finances or what it will do for their families and their home in some instances, because there'll be plenty of people in those categories who have help paying for their home, and you're talking about putting that at risk. Like, it is a massive commitment for them, and for people who aren't used to work, aren't in jobs, don't know the kind of routine that everybody else kind of takes for granted. It's a big step. So 100% there's a community element, and we will continue to push really hard through the programmes and interventions we have. LMP is £400,000 in Antrim Newtownabbey. So in the grand scheme of it, it's money, and we appreciate the finance that we get from the department, and we will continue to do as much as we can with that money. But that money's not going to fix the problem. So I do think if we don't tackle it at the top level as well, within policy, around how we encourage or incentivize, maybe that's the better word, is incentivization to enter work, rather than trying to make it sound like it's a negative thing and a punishment. If we incentivize that does require policy change, and it does require leadership at the top level. There's no doubt about it.